back to the channel. Um, just a quick heads up. I think that after thinking about it a little bit and talking it over, in an effort to streamline, a few other areas where the channel is going to be present, we're gonna change from attack to MUFC versus everybody. That's the name that I use on X, and I think that that's a more apt handle for the channel moving forward. For those of you who've been longtime United fans, you remember the days of Sir Alex. When we had issues come up like Erik Cantona's suspension or David Beckham's red card against Argentina. It was always the practice of Sir Alex to establish this siege mentality, to wall up, to make a wall of protection around his players, around the club, when everybody was kind of coming after us. And so I think that I like that mentality. It's been the Twitter handle for a few months now, and it's just us, it's us against the world. It's United against everybody. So MUFC versus everybody, and we're going to go from there. Today's going to be a little shorter video. I'm not going to talk too much about the Chelsea match. We'll probably do a match review after that, give my thoughts on the performance, on the result, and anything else related to the match. But I want to do a quick video today before I headed off to watch the match with my friends, because we were talking about something recently this week, and I thought it was a good question. I thought it was a good thing to think about, a good thing to discuss, and wanted to share my thoughts on it. And that topic, as we head into the business end of the season and as we gear up for an FA Cup semifinal, is the question: is an FA Cup enough? Is just the FA Cup enough for United fans, for United's owners? Is it enough for Erik Ten Hag this season? It's a good little question. Let me talk for you a few minutes about my thoughts on it, and maybe play devil's advocate in some ways. But before we get started, don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment with your thoughts. I'm really interested to know, because I feel like this is going to be a bit of a polarizing topic. I think it could ruffle a few feathers as well, but I do think it's an important topic to consider, because we are Manchester United. We do have standards, but again, like I've said over and over again, context is key. We're just Manchester United in name, yes, but you have to also consider everything that's going on right now as well, and what you can realistically expect from that. So that being said, let's dive right in. Obviously, we already took a look at United, Spurs, and Aston Villa, all of whom are competing for a spot in the Champions League, and that's a big deal, But let's say, though, for a second, just to kind of start the conversation, let's say hypothetically that United miss out on Champions League and we just don't get it. We don't qualify. There are more than a few points between us and Champions League football. We're well behind Spurs and Villa, who are in that fourth and fifth race. We would have to pull something miraculous out of our hats to do that, and Spurs and Villa would have to hit a slump basically and stop accumulating points. That's the only way. There's a very real possibility that United find ourselves playing Thursday night football next season. So operating under the premise that United are in the Europa League or the Conference League next year, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit just saying that out loud, is potentially ending the season with just an FA Cup, or even just getting to the FA Cup final. Is that enough? Would it be a step backwards compared to last year? As far as the table goes, the Premier League table goes, perhaps you could call it a step backwards. We finished third last year with 75 points. We had 23 wins, 6 draws, and just 9 losses last season. We scored 58 goals. Remember, we conceded 43, and that was like the third best defense in the league last season. And we had a positive goal differential. We had plus 15, which nothing to get excited about, but compared to this season, it's heaven. This year, if you compare it to last year, we just have 9 matches left to play in the league, 8 after today. We play Chelsea. We're currently 6th with just 48 points. We've only have 15 wins this season, 3 draws. So the draws have dipped, but those have shifted more towards the losses than they have the wins. So we've had 11 losses so far. That's already more than our total from last season, and there's still 9 matches left to go. We've only scored 40 goals. We've conceded 40 already as well, so we have a 0 goal differential, and our total conceded last year is just 3 more than we've conceded already this season. There's still 9 matches left, and again, that goal differential sits at 0 or not if you're from the UK, which that's not a good look. So mathematically, we're not going to be able to equal our points tally from last season, even if we win each of our remaining matches, which is unlikely to say the least. Needless to say, it's highly unlikely United won't finish this season anywhere near what we did last season. But remember, we did also win the Carabao Cup last season, and we did make it to the FA Cup final. So we have an FA Cup semi-final coming up against Coventry City in a few weeks. And not to disrespect the Sky Blues, I've been following the Sky Blues for a while. Coventry, I did a scouting report on Victor Gyökeres last season when he was banging him in. He was in that kind of neck-and-neck race with Chuba Akpom in terms of their goal scoring last season in the championship. Akpom went to Ajax. He's not doing great. He's been doing good in recent weeks, but I really like Akpom actually. But so no disrespect to Coventry, but we are favorites to win that fixture and or that tie and move on to the final, meaning that we're likely to reach another cup final in Ten Hag's first 2 seasons. It's a big deal, compared to a lot of other managers. That's a big deal. I don't think anyone would have expected that given what Ten Hag walked into and how we've been playing, and the fact that, again, he's brand new manager, brand new league, coming from a league that people don't rate too highly, which I'll never understand. The Dutch league is not horrible. A lot of good players come out of that league, and that's a big deal. So continuing down this hypothetical path, let's say we won the FA Cup this season, but we didn't qualify for Champions League. So FA Cup and Europa League or Europa Conference League, gross. Would that be enough for the fans? Would that be enough for United's owners? Remember that Louis van Gaal was sacked the day after we won the FA Cup in 2015-2016. Literally the day after that. I think that was down to a combination of overall dissatisfaction with his style of play. He was very possession-oriented, very slow build-up, very low-scoring games, which is almost typical, not to be too stereotypical, but almost typical of a lot of Dutch managers. They play very careful football. So a combination of that style of play, and we finished in 5th place that season with just 66 points. Saw LBG sacked, and then he was replaced with Jose Mourinho. So clearly at that time, the FA Cup and a 5th place finish wasn't good enough for our owners, because it meant we didn't qualify for the cash machine that is basically Champions League football, and we know that's what the Glazers cared about. You cost us money, we miss out on money, you suffer. Under new ownership, though, Sir Jim and his group have the majority stake, so he is has the majority owner of any single entity in the club. Remember, the Glazers, people like to say, well, he's only got 28%, and the Glazers have the rest. Well, the Glazers split the rest between themselves. There's 6 of them, and as we've seen, they're not always in sync when it comes to their opinions on the club. Remember, only when the club's sale was announced, only the 2 brothers, Joel and Avram, wanted to keep the club. Everyone else wanted to sell. So they may collectively, mathematically own majority, but it's split, which makes, again, Sir Jim the majority owner. And if you can kind of separate and create a wedge between some of those siblings, you never know what could happen with each of their shares. So getting back, though, under new ownership, you wonder if a long-term vision that includes Erik Ten Hag, that is willing to give him time under a new structure, you wonder if that vision isn't solely reliant on whether or not he qualifies for Champions League. This is yet to be seen, of course. We'll see what happens at the end of the season. But I would like to know, though, is if an FA Cup but no Champions League next season is enough for United fans. Technically, the FA Cup is considered, a bigger cup than the Carabao Cup. So as far as trophies go, it would be a step forward, right? It's like that progression, Carabao Cup first season, FA Cup next season. That would be a progression as far as trophies go. And at the end of the day, trophies to me are going to trump, style of play or philosophy, especially this early on in your rebuild. You don't make room on your trophy shelf for a style of play trophy, unless you're Arsenal or Spurs. But you do make room for actual trophies, something that Spurs wouldn't even know about. So making it to the final would be also a third final in 2 seasons that Ten Hag has guided us to, which is better than a lot of other top four managers have done. I mean, what did Pep do in his first several seasons? What did Klopp do in his first several seasons? Arteta, yes, he came in, after the season already started, took over from Unai Emery, inherited Unai Emery's squad, and did win the FA Cup. But since then, what has he done? A couple of 8th place finishes, a 5th place finish. They bottled the league. They have a better chance this year, it looks like, of winning the league, but we'll see. There's still a lot of football left to go, and it's not as sure bet as Arsenal fans would have you believe. Would a FA Cup though be enough to silence the Ten Hag out crowd? It's hard to criticize a second domestic trophy in as many seasons, but I would bet a considerable amount of money that his Ten Hag's critics would still find a way to do so. Right? An FA Cup and Champions League qualification would be easier to accept, but an FA Cup without Champions League would likely not be enough to keep Ten Hag's harshest critics at bay. They're still going to find a way to ignore the FA Cup and still demand that. As if Champions League, we all want to be in the Champions League, but honestly, let's say we did qualify. What are the chances you give us, to make it past the group stage, let alone any further? I mean, you could get lucky with your draw, which is why I always consider the league a more impressive feat than Champions League. You have to play everybody twice in the league. You might not have to play any of the harder teams in the Champions League, depending on the luck of the draw. So that's just my thoughts on that, though. And let's look back. We kind of touched upon it in another video, but considering the headaches that Ten Hag's had to deal with, Jadon Sancho, Antony's off-field issues, the injury crisis that we've had to deal with, which I covered in the last video. Again, don't forget to go check that out if you want to hear more of my thoughts on that. It would be far from ideal, and again, almost like a half a step backwards compared to last season. But honestly, for me, with all the other stuff taken into consideration, that context is key. Again, don't forget, an FA Cup would be enough. That's a big deal. That's 2 trophies in 2 seasons. No FA Cup and no Champions League, though, would definitely put Ten Hag on very, very thin ice. And while I wouldn't necessarily call for him to be sacked, I wouldn't be surprised and honestly, I couldn't really defend him if Ineos decided to let him go without an FA Cup and without Champions League. Those are just my thoughts, though. Like I said, short video. Is the FA Cup enough for you? Is no Champions League a deal breaker for you in terms of Ten Hag's tenure? Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and go check us out on MUFC versus everybody. Like I said, when YouTube lets me change the name on this channel, we switch it back over to MUFC versus everybody. You can see the logos changed over, and keep a lookout for more videos. If you want to be the first to know about them, hit that notification bell. And again, I love your feedback. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will catch you after the Chelsea match. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.